Were there any individuals who substantially influenced your literacy development? What did they do?
Yeah, my first grade teacher, Mrs. Spada, she actually was probably one of the biggest influences because she came up with a game for all the students in the class to see who could read the most and log the most hours to get a prize at the end of the semester. And my mom and I actually put in over 150 hours of her and I reading together. And I remember I won it by almost double what anyone else had won it. I still have the chart in my mom's office. So I think that she definitely influenced me the most out of anyone else.
Were there any organizations who substantially influenced your literacy development or impeded it? What did they do?
When I was pretty young, probably first or second grade, my mom signed me up for an after-school tutoring thing because my dad and her were both working. So I went there and they would help me with all my subjects, but English was one that they helped a lot with. And so that definitely helped me out a lot when it comes to writing. I think it would be most on writing because we would have to write short stories and stuff, and it was fun, and they would make it interesting because you could just write stories about what's happened and make-believe stories also.
Now I'm going to ask you about recent literacy developments. How well prepared do you feel for college level writing and why?
I feel like I'm very prepared because I lived in another state last year where everything was different. I moved from Arizona to Washington, and the schooling there is different. They didn't have traditional English classes. The highest level English you could take there was actually called college writing. So I started writing essays that were more based on how I would be graded in college, and they were harder prompts, and that definitely prepared me for English 101, English 102, and upper level Englishes.
What kinds of things do you enjoy reading now, and why?
Now, I probably stray away from reading books, but I mostly go on CNN and I read about what's going on daily, bigger news stories. Also, being in the business school at Arizona State, I read Forbes magazine, so that's a big thing for me, is just reading magazines to try to get more insight.
What skills did you develop from using computers that you still use?
Well, I think the biggest thing is when I started using Microsoft Word. The spell check was a big thing for me. I could see what I had misspelled, and I could remember that better on how to spell it correctly. And also, when there was like a run-on sentence or I had used improper punctuation, that would come up. So that kind of taught me what not to do and what was correct.
Do you believe your race, gender, or sexuality had an impact on your literacy development or the literacy opportunities available to you?
I feel like where I grew up was predominantly, I want to say white. Like most of my middle school and my elementary school was mostly white, and I don't feel like that really had much of a difference in it. So honestly, not really.
How did your community or hometown affect the literacy opportunities available to you? Was your community one that supported your literacy development?
Yeah, I went to a relatively small elementary school, but it had some really, really good teachers, and everyone around there was well educated. All the students that I went to school with were all from pretty well-off families, so it was kind of like the atmosphere was everyone was there to succeed.
Growing up, did you consider yourself to be high class, middle class, or low class? Or, to put this more bluntly, was your family wealthy, poor, or somewhere in between? How did this affect the opportunities you had to develop your literacy?
I was probably middle class, maybe upper middle class. My dad was able to retire when I was still in elementary school, and so that kind of put me in a position where I was living in a nice part of town. I went to a nice school around people who were also in the same kind of boat as me, maybe some were more wealthy. And it was like I said earlier, it was the atmosphere. Everyone there was coming from good families whose parents wanted them to succeed, and it kind of went from the teachers who knew the exact goal. So it made it a little more competitive, which also pushed everyone to try a little bit harder.
How did you go about learning English? Were there any struggles you encountered, and what motivated you to continue?
Learning English was pretty much just what I grew up doing, because I went to a pre-kindergarten, pre-K, and that was also, it's like a private school for that, so they were very, very focused on getting everyone off started quickly. So that helped me out a lot when it comes down to it, because I kind of got an upper foot on other people my age that weren't doing that.
And final question. Would you consider yourself musically literate?
Actually,
And
yeah.
also, what benefits or costs have you accrued from this?
I used to play instruments in elementary school because they were required, so I'd play the trumpet, and then around 6th, 7th grade I started playing the drums and learning to read music. And reading music is also basically like a different language, so that kind of put me in a form to where I could learn basically another language. I started learning Spanish, so I think that music actually did help me out a lot with my literacy. And that's my literacy narrative.